Hi, welcome to the Beat Reporter's Inbox on MLB.com, presented by Edward Jones. I'm Steve Gilbert, MLB.com's Dbacks reporter, here with Angela Denogene asking the questions. Angela, what do we have first?
So our first one's from Joe. Joe wants to know, can A.J. Pollock keep up his numbers all season? He's been key so far.
Joe, I think if you look back to 2015, you'll see that A.J. Pollock finished in the top 5, I believe, in WAR in the National League. So he's somebody that has had tremendous success in the past. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he can keep up the hot start that he's had. A.J.'s a guy that the biggest key for him is staying healthy. That's something that's been a little difficult for him the past couple seasons, but they've been committed to trying to get him enough rest to make sure that he does stay healthy. And as long as he's healthy, I don't see any reason why he can't have the same kind of success over the course of a full season as he's proved he can do that before.
Perfect. Elisa wants to know, hey Steve, have the D-backs announced a return date for Lamb? Our offense sure could use the boost.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that the D-backs offense has done as well as it has, and the team has done as well as it has without Jake Lamb. You know, he got injured 4 games into the season. Steven Souza Jr. got injured March 21st and didn't play the first 5 weeks of the season, and yet the Diamondbacks kept rolling right along. They're getting closer with Jake Lamb. We'll hope to get an update later today, possibly on his status. He's been working over at Extended Spring, going through a rehab program. So they're optimistic that it'll be sooner rather than later. He had a little setback with tendonitis in his right elbow, but that seems to be working its way out. So now it's just a matter of getting him reps and getting him up to game speed.
This one's from Jesse. What's up with Goldschmidt? He hasn't homered all month.
Yeah, it's been an atypical Paul Goldschmidt start, that's for sure. I don't know that there's anything, there's certainly not a lot of worry in the Diamondbacks clubhouse about Paul Goldschmidt. If you look at his numbers over the years, they've been remarkably consistent. And there's really no reason to think that he's not going to end up putting up those same kind of numbers by the end of the year. Players go through stretches throughout the course of a season where they're not swinging the bat for whatever reason well. It just so happens that for Paul Goldschmidt, it's been at the beginning of the season rather than in the middle. So I don't think that there's much concern right now. He seems healthy, and as long as he's healthy and getting up there and taking his at-bats, I think you'll see by the end of the year his numbers will be pretty much what you expect of Paul Goldschmidt.
Matthew wants to know, where will Souza hit in the order when Lamb comes back?
That's a great question. You know, Torey Lovullo likes to be pretty flexible with his lineups depending on matchups. So my guess is it depends on whether you got a righty or a lefty on the mound. But certainly having Steven Souza Jr. in there really lengthens out that lineup and makes the middle of the order that much more potent. It's one of those things where that's why they went out and got him. They had to give up 3 pretty good prospects and Brandon Drury for him, but they really believe that he adds a lot to that lineup, and certainly in the middle of the order, you can use him to split up your lefties. It gives them a lot more options.
Sergio wants to know, are there any trades that the team is pursuing or might be looking for that we can know about?
Well, I think right now, Sergio, it's a little too early. Most of those trade talks happen as we get closer to the July trade deadline. The reporters talked to Mike Hazen recently, and it didn't sound like there was much going on the trade discussion front right now. Most teams use the first couple months of the season to get kind of a gauge as to where their teams are before they start to discuss trades. Usually that takes place after the amateur draft, which is going to be here in the first week of June. So I think in June you'll start to see some of those trade talks pick up, but for right now, generally this is a quiet time when it comes to making deals.
This one's from Nova. Ketel Marte signed a decent extension before the season started, and he has done well defensively, but what's going on with his bat?
Well, this is an interesting one because if you look at his numbers, his right versus left splits, he's done far better from the right-hand side than he has from the left-hand side. And over the course of his career, he's been a better left-handed hitter than a right-handed hitter. So it seems to be at this point just a matter of timing for Ketel from the left side. It's really a challenge for a hitter to keep both sides, if he's a switch hitter, to keep both swings in tune. That's a really hard thing to do. It's hard enough to just, when you have one side to focus on, to keep it sharp. So they're going to continue to work with him. They believe in him. They still think that he'll come around from the left side. He has done that in the past. And one of the reasons they signed him to that extension was because they liked his work ethic and the way he kind of approaches things. So they're pretty confident that he's going to be able to snap out of that, at least from the left-hand side.
Leo wants to know, what's the latest on Robbie Ray?
Nothing really new on Robbie Ray. That oblique strain, it's going to be a while still for Robbie. It's obliques are kind of a tricky injury. Different guys heal at different times. If you remember, a couple years ago, it took Zach Greinke about 5 or 6 weeks to come back from his oblique injury, and it's really just one of those things they can't rush. They can try strengthening that muscle, but they have to let it heal first, and that's really what Robbie's going through right now. Again, it's just going to be a matter of time, and we're only about a week and a half, 2 weeks since the injury happened, so we're probably still about a month away from even talking about Robbie returning.
Chad says, do you think Shelby Miller will slot right back into the rotation, or will the D-backs give Braden Shipley a chance to take on that role?
Well, right now, Braden Shipley, is on the disabled list with elbow inflammation. So right now, he is not a candidate. Shelby Miller, when he does come back, maybe sometime in June, probably will go back into the rotation. I would imagine that's kind of the plan for him. But you have to keep in mind too that while the recovery time from Tommy John surgery is often 12 to 18 months. It sometimes takes guys a lot longer to kind of get back to where they were before that. You saw that with Patrick Corbin when he came back. It took him a little longer sometimes to get back up to speed. But I think the plan, at least for Shelby Miller, would be to go back in the rotation. But again, that's not till June, and as we've seen, a lot of things can happen between in the span of a few weeks.
This one's from Marissa. The D-backs introduced the bullpen cart before the season, but why aren't more pitchers using the bullpen cart?
Yeah, that's a great question. Colin McHugh became the first pitcher to use it during a regular season game. Several Diamondbacks used it during an exhibition game against the Cleveland Indians, but hadn't used it since. Some guys have the routine. Brad Boxberger has talked about, he has a certain routine in the way he runs on the field, so he doesn't want to necessarily use it right now. Archie Bradley has talked about how he really likes the feeling of running on the field because the crowd does tend to go crazy when Archie comes into a game. So for a variety of reasons, it hasn't been used very often. Hopefully now that Colin McHugh has used it, more pitchers will end up using it because it's kind of a fun thing. It's kind of a fun novelty to have.
This one's from Max. Will Patrick Corbin stay hot?
Well, that's a great question. He was off to a great start early on. His last couple outings haven't been as good, but still pretty good. So Patrick Corbin's a guy that towards the end of last year, you saw him really kind of come into his own, it seemed like, and he just really carried that over into this year. So as long as he stays healthy, which he seems to be, I would imagine he's going to have a pretty good year. It certainly seems to be shaping up that way. There's no reason to think now that he's added that slow curveball to go with his fastball and really wipeout slider, no reason to think he won't have success.
Randy wants to know if you can discuss the farm depth talent. Any names that could come up soon?
Well, I think, you look at guys like possibly a Taylor Clark. Shipley was a guy that was going to come up and was called up, but then ended up with the elbow inflammation. So those are a couple of starting pitchers that could help them out. You've already seen Matt Cook come up. Jimmy Sherfy's a reliever who's been on a really good run as of late down there. He's somebody that could help out the bullpen if they need an extra arm. So I think those are some of the names to keep an eye on, at least for right now. I think a lot of their high-end talent is probably a little lower down in the minor leagues after you get past those names I mentioned. So those are probably the guys I would think about right now.
This one's from Joshua. How sustainable is the D-back starting rotation? Can they keep up with the successful pace with all the injuries?
It's been amazing what they've been able to do given the injuries that they've had. But when you're running out a Zach Greinke and a Patrick Corbin, they do have a lot of depth in that rotation, 1 through 5. So when you lose 2 of them, Matt Cook came up, and like I said, he's done a really nice job. He pitched against Clayton Kershaw and Justin Verlander in back-to-back starts. That's not an easy thing to do, and the Diamondbacks won both of those games. So I think as long as you've got Zach Greinke and Patrick Corbin and Zach Godley pitching well, they can kind of fill in the gaps there.
Bryce wants to know, how do you think the D-backs will do against the Nats?
I'm really anxious to see how they're going to do. It's hard to predict baseball, especially when it comes to individual series, but certainly looking forward to the matchup tonight with Zach Greinke and Tanner Warark. Interested to see Strasburg pitch against them again. And Max Scherzer is always fun to watch pitch. So I think it's going to be a really good matchup. The Nationals are getting back some of their players, but still missing some real key parts on offense. It'd be neat to see how they would match up against the Diamondbacks if they had all their players healthy.
Riley wants to know, can Matt Cook stay in the rotation?
Certainly right now he's done nothing to come out of that rotation. He's pitched very well. I believe 4 starts, pitched well in all of them, kept him in the game in all of them. So certainly the way he pitched against Justin Verlander on Sunday certainly indicates that he's they're in no hurry to get him out of that rotation right now.
This one's from Mike. Thoughts on the NL West so far?
The NL West so far, it's always so unpredictable, but I'm really surprised the Dodgers, I guess, given their injuries, it's not as unexpected, but you certainly thought they would be better than they have been. The Diamondbacks caught them at a really good time. Getting 12 of their games against them early in the season really helps, given the injury struggles that the Dodgers have. The Rockies are right there. Again, a team that you expected to be there in the end. And then you've got the Giants, who are just kind of hanging around right around the 500 mark, a veteran team that can always be dangerous, especially when Madison Bumgarner comes. Well, that's all the questions we have time for. Thanks for watching the Beat Reporter's Inbox on MLB.com, presented by Edward Jones. Please tune in again next time.